Think about the one thing almost everyone avoids talking about, no matter where you live or how old you are. It's not politics, not money, it's sexuality in later life. Right now on Wise Mind, we're not just breaking the silence, we're changing the conversation. We're asking the question no one else wants to: what happens to love, to intimacy, to desire when you get older? Most people assume sex fades away after a certain age. But here's the reality. Science tells us that passion and connection can and do last far longer than society wants you to believe. In fact, millions of people over 60 are still physically close, still in love, still exploring new relationships, but almost nobody talks about it. So, what happens when you combine a global aging population with a wall of silence? You get a world where older adults feel invisible, misunderstood, and even ashamed for wanting what's only human. That ends today. This video is about the real facts behind sexuality in later life, the stories, the statistics, and the silent struggles most people never get to hear. You'll see how stereotypes hurt real people, how families sometimes get in the way, and how even doctors struggle with the subject. But it's not just about problems. It's about change, about what we can do differently. Because Wise Mind believes that aging with dignity means living a full life, at every age. Ready for something honest, surprising, and important? Let's start right now. Number 1, social prejudice, society and the sexuality of the elderly. It's time to face facts. Society has a problem with older adults and sexuality. Picture this: most people assume that after a certain age, sex just disappears. That's not just a little misconception, it's a powerful, invisible cage trapping both minds and bodies. Think about it. When was the last time you saw an older couple holding hands or kissing in a movie, in an ad, or even in real life, without it being treated like a joke or something shocking? The message is clear: pleasure, romance, and intimacy are only for the young. But what happens when you let this idea go unchecked? An entire generation gets labeled as asexual, as if desire, curiosity, and connection suddenly stop at 60 or 70 or 80. That's the stereotype. Older people don't want, don't need, and don't deserve sexuality. When people believe this myth, they put up walls built out of awkwardness, silence, and sometimes even disgust. That's not just rude, it's damaging, because if you tell people long enough that they shouldn't want what's natural, they start to believe it themselves. Some shut down their desires out of embarrassment. Others feel shame for even having feelings others consider inappropriate. Now, let's be honest, this isn't just happening in one country or one culture. The idea that older adults should be without sexuality is almost a global rule, not an accident. Research shows that almost half the world's population holds negative or harmful attitudes toward aging and sexuality. This isn't just about uncomfortable jokes, it's about real consequences. Older adults get isolated, their mental health suffers, and their quality of life drops. When people think it's weird or even wrong for older adults to want intimacy, those adults pay the price. Sometimes with loneliness, sometimes with depression, sometimes by losing the chance for closeness at all. But who says that intimacy has an expiration date? Science proves the exact opposite. Surveys in countries like England show that a huge percentage of people in their 60s and even 70s still have active sex lives. Even in their 80s, a significant group continues to enjoy physical relationships. So why does the image of the sexless senior still dominate? Because it's easier for society to think of older people as just grandparents, ignoring their need for touch, love, and excitement. Here's the real cost. When we limit intimacy to youth, we take away a basic human right from people who deserve it most. Older adults, especially women, are often erased, mocked, or even shamed for wanting what's normal. This cycle of stigma and silence doesn't just hurt individuals, it affects families, communities, and entire societies. It's time to change the conversation. Because aging isn't about disappearing. It's about living fully, freely, and with the same rights as anyone else. Number 2, family barriers, controlling sexual expression in the elderly. Wait a moment, this isn't just about what people outside think. Inside the family, things can get even more complicated. Families, the people who should know older adults best, often become the biggest hurdle when it comes to sexuality in later life. Imagine you're a parent, grandparent, or uncle who wants to date, fall in love, or even just enjoy a loving touch. And suddenly the people closest to you start acting uncomfortable, discouraging, even controlling. That's a reality for many older adults around the world. It's not easy for sons, daughters, or other relatives to accept that their older family members still have desires, needs, and the right to make their own decisions about intimacy. Studies show that less than a third of adult children feel comfortable even talking about sex with their aging parents. Think about that for a second. Most kids would rather avoid the subject entirely than have an honest conversation. This silence doesn't just create awkwardness, it's a form of control. It means older adults have to hide, pretend, or even give up on relationships just to keep the peace at home. Sometimes families go further, preventing new relationships, blocking visits from partners, or even interfering when their older members want to live with someone or share affection in public. These actions send a clear message: your body, your feelings, your choices belong to someone else now. For older adults living in their own homes, this can make privacy almost impossible. Every glance, every whisper makes them feel watched, judged, or even ashamed of normal, healthy desires. And when older adults lose privacy, intimacy becomes something secret, something to be ashamed of. The problem gets even bigger when older adults need care, whether at home or in nursing homes. Here, families often have even more control. They might set rules about who can visit, when, or how. For people with dementia or other conditions affecting their judgment, the situation becomes even more complicated. Families worry about consent, autonomy, and safety, sometimes for good reasons. But sometimes the result is that older adults lose the right to express affection, to explore relationships, or even to feel loved in ways that feel natural. Families mean well. They want to protect, care for, and respect their aging relatives. But when protection turns into control, the result is loneliness. Older adults end up in situations where it's easier, safer, and less embarrassing just to stop trying, to accept loneliness rather than face judgment. That's a loss for everyone, and it's the opposite of real care. Care should help people live as fully as possible at every stage of life. That means letting go of old ideas and letting love, intimacy, and respect have no age limit. Number 3, lack of professional support, the negligence of health professionals. When we talk about the health system, we expect support, especially for the most personal, vulnerable issues. But when it comes to sexuality in later life, the help often just isn't there. Doctors and nurses are meant to care for the whole person, but many older adults find that this part of life gets ignored. The truth: most healthcare professionals never even ask about sex, intimacy, or relationships, even though these are basic to well-being at every age. Why does this happen? One big reason is education, or the lack of it. Medical schools rarely teach about geriatric sexuality, so doctors and nurses aren't trained to handle these conversations. Even those who believe older adults deserve care for sexual health often feel uncomfortable bringing up the subject. Studies show that a huge percentage of doctors and nurses find it awkward, or just assume that older patients aren't interested, so they skip the topic entirely. The message is clear. If you're over 60, your doctor might not think your sexual health matters. And this isn't a small problem. Without the right questions and the right care, many issues go undetected. For example, guidelines for checking for sexually transmitted infections in the US often stop at age 55, even though infection rates in older adults are rising. In many places, sexual health screening ends after 65, leaving people unprotected and uninformed. Some doctors flat out refuse to believe that older adults are still sexually active, which means they miss important health issues and don't offer the right support. The consequences are real and damaging. Older adults can end up with untreated medical problems or feel too ashamed to speak up. Some even stop seeking care altogether. The lack of talk, the lack of screening, the lack of respect, it all adds up to a cycle of neglect. In the end, older adults are denied both information and dignity, and their quality of life suffers. But here's the hopeful part: change is possible. When healthcare professionals get real training, when they're encouraged to ask, listen, and care, things start to shift. Models already exist where doctors are taught to have open, respectful conversations about sexual health at any age. It's not just about medical care, it's about human rights. Everyone deserves to be seen, heard, and cared for, not just in youth, but at every stage of life. So next time you hear someone say, old people don't have sex, remember, reality disagrees. The real question is, are we ready to listen and respond? Number 4, media absence, the invisibility of the elderly in the media. Let's also talk about what's missing from our screens: older adults portrayed as real, complex, interesting people. When was the last time you saw a movie, a series, or even a commercial where someone over 60 was shown as happy, healthy, passionate, or romantic, without it being played for laughs or shock value? The answer, most likely, is almost never. In the world of media, aging often means disappearing, especially if you're a woman. If older characters do appear, they're usually there to play the wise old mentor or the helpless grandparent, never the lover, the dreamer, or the adventurer. But the problem goes deeper than just being invisible. When older adults do show up, the picture is usually grim. Two-thirds of news articles about aging focus on loss, on sickness, frailty, needing help, or being a burden. Older women, in particular, get the worst of it. If they're lucky enough to be shown at all, they're 4 times more likely to be portrayed as forgetful or out of touch than men their age. The message is clear: the older you get, the less attractive, the less witty, the less interesting you're supposed to be. Sexy? Forget it. Interesting? Not a chance. After all, who wants to watch that? These aren't just bad stories, they hurt real people. When you see hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of images telling you that aging means losing your spark, your voice, your right to romance, it starts to shape how you feel about yourself. Studies show that people exposed to negative stereotypes about aging actually start to see themselves as less capable, less confident, even less valuable. Imagine being told over and over, mostly by people who don't know you, that your best years are behind you. Wouldn't you start to believe it? Just a little, but here's something surprising. Sometimes older adults actually feel a bit better after seeing negative portrayals of aging, because it makes them think, well, at least I'm not like that. That's called downward social comparison, and it's a short-term fix. It doesn't solve the real issue. When people see only the worst-case aging stories, they never get to imagine other possibilities. What happens when someone sees a vibrant, sexy, powerful older adult, someone enjoying friendship, romance, travel, learning, or adventure? Research suggests that simply seeing more positive, diverse images of aging can help change minds, not just about older people, but about what it means to grow older. So here's the truth. What's missing from our movies, our TV, our news, and our ads is real life. Because in reality, millions of older adults live with passion, curiosity, and a desire for love and pleasure, whether society wants to see it or not. When the media finally catches up, when it starts showing the full range of aging experience, things will change. Not just for the people watching, but for everyone who hopes to live a long, rich, connected life. Because aging isn't about fading away, it's about living differently, but just as fully. And that's a story worth telling. Number 5. Eroticization and pornography, the paradox of taboo and presence. There's a strange contradiction in our culture. On one hand, we're told that older adults and sex don't mix, that it's awkward, even inappropriate. But at the same time, if you look online, you'll find plenty of videos and images showing exactly that. Why is it that real-life intimacy between older people is treated as a secret, while in the world of adult content, it's sometimes front and center? This is the paradox. In public, we pretend it doesn't happen, but behind closed screens, it's right there, often distorted but still present. The way older adults are shown in adult content is usually far from respectful. When older bodies do appear, they're often treated as something strange, comical, or even shocking. Categories like elderly porn are grouped with other so-called taboo genres, sending the message that senior sexuality is something unusual or even wrong. That's what fetishization looks like. The idea that older people having sex is a curiosity, not a normal part of life. Sometimes these portrayals can be degrading, turning real human experiences into something just meant to shock or entertain. This kind of representation doesn't just affect people who watch these videos, it shapes how everyone thinks about aging and sex. When older adults are only shown as objects of ridicule or curiosity, It reinforces the idea that their desires are weird, not worth respecting. That's one reason why real-life conversations about this topic are so rare. When you only see something in a negative or sensationalized way, it's hard to imagine it as healthy, normal, or beautiful. But things are slowly changing. Some people, couples, filmmakers, even adult content creators are starting to show older adults as real people, loving, passionate, and fully human. These stories and images don't rely on shock value. Instead, they show intimacy as it really is, sometimes awkward, sometimes surprising, but always honest. This is the opposite of fetishization, it's normalization. And it matters because it helps break the cycle of silence, shame, and misunderstanding. The way we talk about something, or don't talk about it, shapes reality. If we can start to imagine older adults as whole people with desires, dreams, and the right to love, we'll all be freer. Because the truth is, sexuality doesn't turn off at 60 or 70 or 80. It changes like all things do, but it doesn't disappear. The real taboo isn't sex in later life, it's pretending it's not there. When we change that, we take a big step toward a world where everyone can live fully at every age. And that's a story worth telling and watching together. So we've reached the end of a conversation most people never have about sexuality, aging, and the right to love at every stage of life. Every point we've covered, the silence, the shame, the stereotypes, and the little signs of change adds up to a simple truth. Older adults are like anyone else. They fall in love, they miss connection, they dream, and yes, they desire. The real taboo isn't talking about it, it's pretending it's not real. If this video made you think, surprised you, or even challenged something you believed, that's the whole point. Wise Mind exists to spark real conversations about the topics that matter, even when they are uncomfortable. And real change starts with honest talk, in families, doctors' offices, newsrooms, and yes, even on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. See you in the next video.